Just a quick note before we begin. If you find meaning or comfort in these conversations, consider becoming a supporter of the Don't Forget to Breathe podcast. Your support helps keep these stories alive and makes it possible for others to find hope in their own grief journey. For as little as $3 a month, your support goes to offset costs associated with production. You can learn more on the information page for this episode and by clicking on the link, Support the Show. Welcome to Don't Forget to Breathe. I'm Bruce Barker, here with my co-host, Kristin Glenn. You know, when a child dies, it can feel like everything has been taken from you. Not just their presence, but your future, your identity, your sense of safety, your plans, your assumptions about how life was supposed to unfold. There's this overwhelming sense that death didn't just take your child, it took everything. But over time, and not because time heals anything, but because we begin to look a little more honestly at what's still here, we may start to notice something else. There are things that their death couldn't take from us. It couldn't take our love, our memories, the bond we still have with them, the ways they shaped who we are and continue to shape us. So today, Kristin and I want to talk about what death doesn't get to keep, what still belongs to us, even now.
You know, so Kristin, for me, that immediate aftermath, it took everything. It felt like my role as a dad disappeared overnight. And as we talked about in a previous episode, the future I imagined for Kristin was gone. And certainly, and I believe our listeners can relate to this, is just even my sense of who I was changed.
For me too. Zachary was our only at the time as well. Different stage of my life since I was so young when he died. So didn't remain that way. But, you know, just this overwhelming sense of everything is gone. There's nothing remaining. I'm just an absolute shell of the person I ever was. I am really more of a burden. I'm more of a placeholder. I'm not a full person. You know, I just felt like I was see-through because I was so lacking in any substance of being. It felt like the death, that trauma, that devastating loss took absolutely everything. All of my relationships, all of my worth, all of my own future, certainly Zach's future, my ability to be optimistic about life, to be hopeful. It was almost kind of insulting if people would suggest at that time that I had something to live for. You know, I mean, like people would try desperately to be like, but you're young, you have so much to live for. So many people need you. When I was pushed into that, you know, instead of discovering in that ourselves, it felt really unnatural for others to try to define what death didn't take from me because I had to discover that in my own timeline, not to be told that or pushed into that. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah. A whole new identity. Did you feel like your identity as a mother changed?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't feel like I was a mother, you know, and again, very well-meaning, reassuring folks saying, of course you'll always be Zachary's mother, but where is he then? Who am I cuddling? Who am I making dinner for? Whose laughter is in the house? Who's asking me to be his mommy? No one. It's just silence. So it sure didn't feel like what motherhood felt like the day before this tragedy. That's not a motherhood that I had ever imagined. You know, a motherhood full of memories only.
I think we all agree in the immediate aftermath of losing our child that death took everything. But as we're all at different places on our grief journey, what death couldn't take.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I appreciate the question because I feel like sometimes it's tough not to, think it still did take so much, especially over this much time, and how the memories aren't vivid. They're not vivid. I can't say that I remember his little nuances unless I go seek them out in a picture or the few videos we have, because it was pre-cell phone, like you and I've talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't take the lessons he taught me. It didn't take what he gave me. It didn't take becoming a mother from me. It didn't take his role in our family as our firstborn. Maybe death didn't take all those memories, but maybe that is what happens over time. Time's not healing my grief, but it is robbing me of the vividness of my memories.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm mad at time. I'm mad at some of the time that's passing and trying to imagine who he'd be now, and not being able to remember, did he do this? Was he like this? And having less and less people share those memories also is a thief kind of the memories, kind of taking those away because I'm not getting those new memories from the others in my life. How about for you? What do you feel about that same?
I mean, I think the relationships that didn't vanish, and many did, those changed. They changed form. So death didn't take the relationships that, I guess it sounds harsh to say, but for those people that matter, the ones that are always there, it didn't take them away. It took a lot of other people away, but it changed that relationship. So whether there was more tenderness or understanding or connection, but also a higher level of trust, I think. So when they ask, how you doing? How you holding up? It's not a platitude. They want to know.
Right. What a gift.
And they're willing to listen.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to fix it. So the influence that Kristin still has, I mean, that's still alive in how I move through the world, how I function. I think it was easy to be non-empathetic before. And now empathy is at a forefront.
Yeah.
Like it's right up there. And some of that, sure, we could attribute to age, but not early on. It was, whether it was seeing a commercial and it felt different and feeling the emotion from it. And I know I was a girls lacrosse coach for about 10 years, and it influenced how I coached and how protective I was of the girls that I coached, and also how I viewed the parental relationships they had. And I was probably less patient and seeing things that I didn't agree with, knowing what can disappear instantly.
Right.
Where before it would have just been, it just would have been completely different. I could have been apathetic about it, or I could have whatever, but it changed my view of the world as a parent who's lost a child. And then it just seemed like every news story was that. So now, so when I would see a story, as we've seen far too many times and countless times, of children dying, whether it's school shootings, whether it's whatever tragedy it might be, where before I might have felt a little sad thinking of the child, that they're not here. Now my view was immediately going to the parent.
Wow. Yeah.
And death didn't take away what Kristin, her life and her death what influenced me and how it changed that. And for sure, and I think every parent, every listener can attest to this, is it didn't take the love away. If anything else, it amplified it.
That's exactly right. That's what I was trying to put into words. It's like, that is the part that is so deep and so full in my heart, that it takes away some of the sting, that the vivid memories have faded. But when I hear his name, when I think of him, that warmth that you can just feel radiating in your core is as big, or maybe bigger than ever.
Yeah.
because that's what remains, right? There's nothing that's darkened that or that's taken that, or it's like I'm even more protective of that than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
That deep, deep love and the things I've done in my life that I feel like were to honor him, and how protective I feel of those efforts to find meaning by, reaching out to others. I think it's why this podcast speaks to me so much. Like how lucky I feel to have this outlet. I feel sad that so many people years after loss don't get an opportunity to talk to someone that gets it,
Yeah.
and maybe have other listeners that gets it, and I get to say his name and feel that warmth and feel that deep connection. And there's no way death will ever take that from me.
Yeah. When you look at death as this entity, so to speak, and there's lines in songs and music and plays and poems, and that death doesn't discriminate, and whatever it is, like it's cold, right? And this is kind of one of those, yeah, but you didn't take this.
Exactly.
You could not take away the love. And that, as we've talked about before, is that depth of love equaling that depth of grief because of that connection. And sometimes it's, depending on where you are in your journey, it's hard to process. But it took a while, again, after that immediate shock and heavy sadness, I actually have that realization that my love for Kristin had not gone anywhere.
Absolutely.
Like, it was still there. And I didn't know at the time that was directly related to that feeling of grief, of how sad I was. But realizing that, yeah, my love for her, while she was not here on the earth anymore, my love for her hadn't gone anywhere.
Well, and I appreciated hearing like what you've done on birthdays to specifically. I know you do this on, these connected activities on a daily basis as you think of her, but those very intentional moments of whether it was your art through pottery or a slideshow with her music. And, you have inspired me to do more of that, because I think I haven't done that, and I want to. I want to find something again, because I think I did that more for myself in the beginning, and I've let that go, and it makes me, feel neglectful of his memory, or like I'm letting him down. And I don't want to do that. Birthdays are a really big thing in our family. I really like to celebrate birthdays. And maybe that's his influence too. Don't let one birthday go without really celebrating it. But I want to do something between him and I. So yes. I'm gonna be looking a mom Zach moment. I haven't found that for a while, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm inspired to find it.
It'll come to you. I mean, that's just it. Is I avoided it for the longest time. It was so painful until I made that conscious decision to embrace it, and it would be the two of us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. I mean, I know I've talked to other parents who've, and some have struggled through parties, where there's birthday parties and everybody comes and they're struggling through that because it's a bigger event, for families, and missing out on that one-on-one. I mean, I encourage that. My relationship with her continues, and especially on those days, we're talking. And it can be, obviously it's emotional, and there's moments of tears, and then there's smiles. It's all mixed in there together, but they're super special birthdays.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next one's going to be, but it'll come to me.
It will. Yeah. I'm going to give myself permission to reflect on that more than I have over the years. I think I've tried to just get through the day.
Yeah.
And I want it to be more than just getting through the day. I want to mark, I became a mother on that day. That was both of our shifts. Their birthdays are the moment that we knew what it was like to become a parent as our, you know, the first time we'd known that kind of love. And I think it's worthy of me taking some time, like you've shown me, to find something. And it can't be forced, and it can't, feel disgenuine or something out of a Hallmark commercial, but it'll be something that's just between Zach and I. I need that, really.
Yeah, you'll just know. And at the end of the day, I felt each time since I've been intentional with this of feeling full. I mean, like we had a great day together.
Wow. I want that.
So there's still the bond, right? And I don't believe that changes. There's this theory. It's called it's the continuing bonds theory, and so it was introduced in '96. There were 3 people that introduced it, and what it was is their theory was that healthy grief doesn't require letting go or getting quote unquote closure, because we know how that works.
Right.
But rather, it's transforming the relationship with those who've died into something new and symbolic or internal, like having an internal connection. Basically, it encourages integrating their memory and their values and their love into your ongoing life rather than detaching. Super easy to detach. And again, for the birthdays, I did that for the longest time. But to reintegrate her back into my life, I mean, I talked to Kristin, and I've talked to other parents who say they do the same thing. We can have conversations, and even some of the decisions that I make, she influences that. So I want to honor her the same as if she were here on earth with some of the things that I do. So what are some of the ways that you maintain that bond with Zach?
I think it really has been embedded in supporting other people in their grief. That has been, and I think as I've done less of that over the last 2 years, I'm struggling to figure out how to refine that, because that was pretty all consuming for 20 years. I didn't have to ask what I was doing to honor Zach, because it was my daily outreach and purpose, and I was doing it every single day in some form, interacting with someone else that knew the depth of their own loss. And we didn't share each other's stories, as you and I've said, but we knew how incredibly bewildering it was to try to find out what was next. And, I think without that, it's still a big part of my life, but it certainly is not what it was for that couple of decades. So it's healthy for me to redefine that. And it's hard and it's a struggle, but it's been beautiful to just be able to pause and say, actually, I'm just going to focus on the fact that I need myself as a support this week. I only am going to have my own story filling my heart for a little bit of time, which is not that all those other stories and people don't have spaces in my heart and mind, but that it's not selfish for me to also just return to a space where it's just Zach and I. And I haven't done it long enough. I feel kind of brand new to this. I know it will have something that's very much little boyish, because as much as the calendar and the years passing say he's 36, he's 3.5. So doing something that's a 3.5-year-old type of bonding. We didn't have deep conversations. We didn't, we were a mom and a little boy. And to have that be more of the tone feels very appropriate than to trying to imagine who he'd be. I've done things where I try to imagine who he is now, and there's just no way I can fantasize about that.
Yeah.
But I don't have any idea. And I think as I do have adult children, I could never have imagined who they would have been when they were babies. They've surprised me in so many ways, good and scary ways. They surprise me all the time on who they have become as their own people now.
Yeah.
So to think that I could imagine who this little guy would have become doesn't feel authentic to me.
What I saw in you and my experience with you of what death didn't take and where it landed with you was what I saw in the role that you had for so many years was what it gave you and what I believe that Zach gave you. Now, this is just my observation, is the compassion that you have and perspective that only a parent who has lost a child can have, and that advocacy, the strength that you showed, and you were there for so many parents in those immediate, life-altering, shattered, fragile moments. All that strength and purpose with what you were doing with that and co-founding that nonprofit and all the time that you spent doing that. But I'm seeing that shift here now too, in bringing that to this podcast. And I know you continue to work with groups, supporting groups, and I do the same. And I think by, bringing all of that together is something that death didn't take away, and what I think Zach gave you. I mean,
it's such a gift to hear that.
What ways do you think he still guides you?
Well, I hope the ways that you said, I hope that he's given me a lens of compassion. I think he's given me a sense of, in most situations, apathy doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I tend to be pretty action-oriented. I want to make a difference. I'm not very good at just kind of hanging back and thinking, well, someone else will take the lead on leaning towards grief. I don't take the lead in situations that I don't know, and I don't know very much about most things, but I really know grief.
Yeah.
And so I feel very compelled to lean into that and to be an advocate and to be kind of gritty about it, and I think he's given me that bravery to say, I don't know what to say, but I know I can be there. I know I can show up for people in some dark times, and it's not going to break me, and I'm not going to say the exact right thing, but I'm going to be a shower-upper for people. I think he's changed that about me. I don't know if that would have been me. I don't think it would have been me. My pre-self, I think, would have been very much like, ooh, that's sad. I'm going to avoid that. I don't want to risk saying that or doing the wrong thing, and I'm not equipped. I would definitely not feel equipped, and maybe I wasn't, but death has given me I feel equipped to handle my own stuff and to lean towards other people in hopes that I can show them that they also can navigate theirs.
Yeah. I mean, I know we all know what death took away, and we've talked about in this what death couldn't take. I know this isn't a silver lining. Certainly that's not a way to describe it, because none of this makes their death okay. But this is about what survived, not what was gained. We're not gaining things, but just what survived.
Well, that is so much better than saying gained for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever view this as something I gained so much from this. I'd rather have gained nothing.
Yeah.
I want to be naive again. I even want to be lacking in compassion again, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Do I get to have a magic wand and have my Zach back? I mean, that's the bottom line, that's the truth. But what has come, from this darkness, I think that it's okay that something does come from it. I thought I had died with Zach. That's what I thought death took, was me. I thought, well, Zach and I both died that day. He died in his body from this earth, and my soul just died. And I'm just going to have to be a body until I can leave this earth. That's all I'm going to be. It's just a shell. And death didn't get to take that. I got to regain who I'm meant to be now, I guess, or who I am now. I don't think it's meant to be, but who I've decided to be. Do you think you've decided to be this version of Bruce? Is this a decision, a conscious decision that you make to be this version of yourself that Kristin taught you to be?
It took effort. Yeah, I mean, I had to step into it. It was finding meaning without justifying the loss. It was finding it over a period of time. And a lot of it just fell into my lap, as I just kind of explained in the first season, how this whole podcast, how it all kind of started. And it wasn't about anything other than I just needed out of me all of those things. And really all I was kind of getting was enough light to see the next step. I didn't know what was ahead of that and didn't see where the path was going.
Yeah.
So it was really just making that decision to take one more step. And now, 19 years later, here's where I am. And hoping that there is meaning with what has happened, that Kristin is influencing and helping others, other parents.
Yeah.
But again, it's not justifying it at all.
Yeah.
So the thing that we've talked about tonight, like death absolutely took their physical presence away, but it didn't take our love at all. And it didn't take our memories, even though they kind of get cloudy now and then. It still didn't take it.
That's absolutely right. And I would add that it didn't take the essence of who we were and who we've chosen to become. I feel like I've chosen to allow this to shape me in good and bad ways. But I have allowed this experience to change how I view the world and how I love people and how I take risk and how I show up for other people and how mad I can get when people aren't appreciating their fellow human beings.
Yes.
It's changed my emotions are intense. They're not gray.
Yeah.
And so death probably taught me some of those things that I didn't want to be taught. But I got those lessons just with the fate that life handed this tragic accident to our family.
Yeah. There's still things that belong to us.
Absolutely.
Just doesn't get to keep.
No way.
To our listeners, if you feel prompted in any way to share your child's story, we invite you to reach out. This podcast exists so parents can speak their truth, introduce the world to their child, and share not only their grief, but their love and what death did not take from you. So we have more parent stories coming in future episodes. We'll be doing several of those in-person recordings in a couple of weeks, but you can share your story right where you are. Doesn't have to be in person. You don't need any special equipment. We've talked about this before. We can record right where you are, right through your computer. Our contact information follows the end of this episode, so we invite you to reach out.
If you carry anything with you from this conversation, let it be this. Death may have taken your child's physical presence, but it did not take your love. That connection, that bond, it's still there. It just takes on a different form. However that looks for you, there's no right way to do this. You're allowed to find your own way in your own time. And if you feel called to share your child's story, we invite you to reach out. This space exists for you. So until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take care. And please, don't forget to breathe. One more thing. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals, just parents who've experienced unimaginable loss. This isn't meant to replace help from a therapist, doctor, or other mental health professional. If you're struggling, please reach out to someone qualified. You are not alone. You can also contact us by going to the show notes and click on Send Us a Text, or you can visit us at our new website, don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org. Feel free to email us at support@don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org. That's support@don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org.